So welcome everybody. This event obviously is being recorded and all participants and registrants will get links to the recording. Let me tell you a little bit about the agenda. There's my picture in the upper right. Again, I'm Mike Lisicki. I work here at the Maricopa Community Colleges and we're pleased to be the host of today's webinar. Starting, we'll do a welcome and introduction of panelists. And we have sort of an interesting approach today. We've asked 4 national panelists to participate. I'm going to pose a series of questions to them. We'll have some back and forth conversation. We want to know about Manufacturing Day. We want to know about its importance, how its success is measured. So that'll be exciting to have this discussion with our panelists. Then we want to look at several collaborative efforts. Look at number 3 on the screen. Collaborative efforts in Minnesota and Florida, number 4. So we'll tell them how it works for them. We'll want to find out what they did and maybe what they didn't do to make Manufacturing Day a success. Then we'll get in some details as you or your colleagues start planning for Manufacturing Day this coming October. We'll talk about the details of doing student tours and managing other events. And of course, we'll have some questions and answers and a discussion as we move towards the end of the webinar. Here's our objective today. If you're online, you're joined us with this webinar. Number 1, we want everyone, all of us, to better understand the mission of Manufacturing Day. Not only its mission, but what's its impact? That's important, right? Look at the second bullet. We'd like us, all of us, to understand how important it is to establish partnerships and collaborations with industry, education, and local governments, as well as other people like WIBs and economic development boards. Third bullet, best practices are out there and we might as well take advantage of them. So we're going to be talking about what to do, perhaps what not to do as we get closer to Manufacturing Day. And then finally, we're going to look at a timeline for how we think you could coordinate your own efforts coming up for Manufacturing Day. Here's our panelists. Marilyn Barger, she's the Executive Director of the Florida Advanced Technological Education Center. Erin Sparks joining us today. She's substituting for Deputy Assistant Chandra Brown, whose schedule conflicted her for today. We're pleased to have Erin join us as Senior Advisor for Manufacturing Policy, U.S. Department of Commerce. That's great. Pat Lee gives us a perspective. She's the Marketing Director of the National Manufacturing Day and Fabricators and Manufacturers Association International, and she's based in Illinois. Then joining us from the industry side is Bill Mizerock. He's the Global Director of Continuous Improvement at ConMed Corporation, and they're headquartered in Florida. Okay folks, now we get to ask you a couple of questions. I'd like you to turn your attention to the polling functions. I'd like you to tell us whether you're academic. That could mean teacher, faculty, school administrator. That's A. So go up there and start clicking these buttons. Tell us whether you're B, industry, or an industry partner. Number C, tell us if you're part of an association. D, workforce and economic development or government official. And if you're thinking you don't fit into any of those, well, maybe you can say none of the above in the chat window, or you can just pick the best choice that you've got. All right, so you know who you are. Lots of people are finding the polling button and clicking their answers. I'm only going to give you a few more seconds. So I'll count down from 5. Then I have to figure out how to show the results of this poll. Okay, here we go. Ready? I'm going to give you a countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's see who's here today. Let's move this up here a little bit. So we've got a whole spread of people, but the majority of us on the webinar today are from the academic side with a good mixture of people from companies, associations, and workforce development groups. That's just perfect, perfect. So we're going to go now to a second question for you. And before you answer, let me just change the polling thing here. I've got to change the polling type of questions. There we go. Okay, so now we're ready. Have you participated in Manufacturing Day activities in the past? Yes, I have. And we participated in a grand fashion. I like that. B, we participated a little. And C is no. So you probably know if you participated or not, so go ahead and please use your polling buttons up there on the top of the screen. Use that box so that all of us can see your results, A, B, or C. And let's take a look. Lots of results streaming into the system. I can see them. Here we go. Let's take a look at the results of the poll, and we're going to show the results when I count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There it is. Oh man, this is good. We participated in a grand fashion, but almost equal numbers if you add them up. Have participated a little or perhaps not yet. So that's perfect. We've got experienced people in the room that can give us advice in the chat window, and people who haven't been involved with Manufacturing Day before. So cool. Here we go. Now it's time to bring our panelists up. Let me remind you who they are again. Marilyn Barger from FLATE, Aaron Sparks, Department of Commerce, Bill Mizerock from ComMed, and Pat Lee is going to be our first panelist. Pat, don't forget to unmute your system as you come on. I've got a question for you, Pat. You've been involved with Manufacturing Day for quite a while. What would you say, if you had to talk to people, what's the mission of Manufacturing Day? And here's the important question. What would you judge its impact to date, Pat? Go ahead.
Well, good morning. I appreciate being on this call to represent the national co-producers. And those co-producers are FMA, the company I work for, NAM, National Association of Manufacturers, the Manufacturing Institute, and the NIST MEP program of the Department of Commerce, so that you know a little bit about who's created Manufacturing Day. Our mission is really pretty simple. We believe that there are many misconceptions about what manufacturing is and what it isn't. And when people don't understand something, they tend to be confused about it. And if they're confused, they may have the wrong opinion. So our mission is really to simply demonstrate the truth about modern manufacturing. We want people to see for themselves what manufacturing is really like today, so that they will hopefully have a positive impression of manufacturing and be willing to encourage young people who are our workforce of the future to give manufacturing careers serious consideration. We know we have a serious skilled labor shortage, and we know that if educators, parents, and students all understand that manufacturing is a great career path and it provides well-paid jobs without always having the need for high-debt educational opportunities, university degrees, then we will get more young people who are interested in pursuing manufacturing. And it also gives us the opportunity to have the employers one-on-one actually showcase what they require when they're doing their hiring, and they can demonstrate the skills that the employers actually value, the kinds of things they're really looking for when they go out to hire people. So hopefully that encourages young people to start to take more coursework in those areas. The third thing that Manufacturing Day really does, and this is the perfect example of it, it empowers manufacturers to collaborate. You know, as you work together, either as just a group of local manufacturers or you're working under coordination efforts by a community college or by an economic development group, it is giving your voice the chance to be heard, and it's making your voice stronger because it is coming in loud and clear along with some of your colleagues. So this helps manufacturers really get to address their collective challenges. We're going to talk a little bit later about how important it is to invite your elected officials in. And as you do that and as you collaborate to do that, it really makes your issues and your challenges far more visible to the people who can have an impact on them. So those are all the things that we are trying to accomplish with Manufacturing Day. And with the next slide, we're going to show you just a little bit about how much of an impact we've had. Manufacturing Day started in 2012. And as you can see, we had 240 events They were held in 37 states, and about 7,000 people attended those events. By 2013, we'd gone up to 825 events in 48 states with about 35,000 attendees. And last year, doubled that number again to 1,684 events, all 50 states, plus 3 Canadian provinces and Puerto Rico. And just a little over 400,000 participants had some connection to Manufacturing Day. Either they were at a live event, a virtual event, or they were involved in producing events. Now, congratulations to Florida and everyone on this call. In looking at the top 3 states from last year for number of events, Florida came in #1 in the nation with 162 events. Who says they don't make anything in Florida? That was followed by California at 149 and Illinois at 106 events. I know that there are some high hopes for this year in Florida, and I'm here to say there's a lot of things we can do to try to help you, so go at it. We had some other interesting Manufacturing Day achievements for the first time last year. We had our first presidential visit to a Manufacturing Day event. President Obama was at Millennium Steel in Indiana on Manufacturing Day and issued the first presidential proclamation declaring an official Manufacturing Day in the U.S. And because I know we have a representative on the panel from the Department of Commerce, we had a request from the Commerce Secretary's office almost immediately following Manufacturing Day last year saying, what are your goals for next year and what can the Department of Commerce do to assist in achieving those goals? So we know that Manufacturing Day has had a significant impact, that it is high on the radar screen in Washington, D.C. And all of that is very, very helpful to the efforts that will go into producing events this year and beyond. And that's pretty much it, Mike.
Yeah, thanks. That's a very interesting perspective from your from this national event that you've worked with for so long. So thank you very much. You mentioned the Department of Commerce, and that actually brings us to our next speaker. I'm going to advance the slide here. Our next panelist, rather. Joining us today is Erin Sparks. She's the Senior Advisor for Manufacturing Policy at the U.S. Department of Commerce. I've got a question for you, Erin, but before I do, what do you do? What does a Senior Advisor do at the Department of Commerce? I don't mean that to sound funny, but tell us a little bit about your role there.
Sure. Well, there's a number of advisor positions at the Department of Commerce. I happen to have the good fortune to be Secretary Pritzker's advisor for manufacturing policy. So I sit in her office, in the Office for Policy and Strategic Planning, where we have a number of advisors who cover different issues. And it's one way of really seeing what the priorities are within the Commerce Department because we have advisors on those issues. So it's a very good signal that manufacturing is important to her, that she has a person solely devoted to this.
Yes, it is. And thank you for joining us today. Here's the question we'd like to advance to you. From your perspective, what do you think the importance is of introducing students to manufacturing in a general sense? And then how does that relate to the larger picture maybe of our economic development in this country?
Sure. Well, let me start by saying just how excited I am to see the momentum that's already building so early in the year for Manufacturing Day 2015. We are so excited. We're thrilled that our Manufacturing Extension Partnership is one of the co-producers of Manufacturing Day, and it's something that people get excited about across the whole department. So as I mentioned, I'm Secretary Pritzker's advisor for manufacturing policy, and I can tell you that the issue of skills comes up in almost every meeting that she has with manufacturing CEOs. They tell her that they can't find enough skilled workers in manufacturing to fill their job openings. And they connect part of this challenge to a negative public misperception of manufacturing. The data backs up the stories that we're hearing from industry. According to a recent report on the manufacturing skills gap by Deloitte and the Manufacturing Institute, over the next decade, there will be nearly 3.5 million manufacturing jobs that open, and the skills gap will result in 2 million of those jobs going unfilled. There's a real economic impact to that skills gap. Manufacturing is a critical sector of the economy, not just for the jobs it provides, but because inventing things and making them are so intricately tied together. Nearly 75% of private sector R&D takes place in the manufacturing sector, and about 70% of patents are manufacturing related. If we don't have the workers to fill those needs, there's a real risk of falling behind, not just in producing things, but really in inventing them too. Americans tend to understand the economic importance of manufacturing, but the same Deloitte research study looked at the perception of manufacturing and found that while most Americans consider manufacturing to be one of the most important domestic industries, they rank it low as a career choice for themselves. So that's the perception that needs to change, and that Manufacturing Day is focused on changing. American manufacturing is strong and getting stronger, but it can only continue to grow and thrive if we have a steady stream of young people who are excited about careers in manufacturing. We think the best way to get them excited is to bring them into the plants and factories and show them. Show them that the manufacturing looks different today than it did for their grandfathers or fathers. Show them the diverse range of jobs available in manufacturing across all skill levels, and show them that these jobs are not going anywhere but staying here in America. It's something that we ourselves can't help but get excited about across the Commerce Department, and as I said, we are so proud that our Manufacturing Extension Partnership is one of the co-producers along with organizations like FMA, and we are thrilled to have your participation.
Erin, thank you. Here in Arizona, we have a sort of reinvigorated MEP, and they're now becoming very much a part of our Manufacturing Day production as well, coming up for October. So we appreciate your support of that. Okay, Erin, thank you. I know you may have constraints on your time, and if you're not able to stay for the question and answer period, we certainly understand that. Let me go ahead and take.
Just so you know.
Oh, good, excellent. So I'll throw some questions at you. Let's go ahead to our next presenter, folks. I'm going to click the slide. I'd like to welcome Dr. Marilyn Barger. She's the Executive Director at FLATE. That's the Florida Advanced Technological Education Center. And she got a shout out from Pat Lee, having one of the best Manufacturing Day things going on in Florida. So Marilyn, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about what's happening with you. But let me give you the question that I'd like to ask you. Could you, in your remarks, tell us the importance of collaborations? Because I know that you've worked hard on that. Collaborations, curriculum, and data collection. That stuff ought to take place, right, in Manufacturing Day. Tell us a bit about how that works.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks a lot, Mike, and for hosting us today. We're excited about Manufacturing Day. We have been for the last couple of years. I'm going to back up a bit and tell you all a little bit about FLATE and what our mission is, so you can put in context of the work we have done and been doing with Manufacturing Day. So we are a National Science Foundation Advanced Technological Education Center of Excellence. We're located in Florida, and we serve the whole state of Florida for the 2-year academic programs that support the manufacturing industry. To that end, we also include that part of that is building a pipeline for those programs so that they have full classes and lots of graduates for our manufacturing industry in the state. So part of recruiting students, which Pat mentioned, changing perceptions that this is a good opportunity for them for their futures, is part of our mission. And we've been working on that in Florida since 2004. Of course, back in those 10 years ago or so when we started, there was not a very good perception of manufacturing, nor was it a really on the horizon as something we should pay attention to in the state. So we had a bigger mountain to climb to get students engaged in Florida and to get into our programs. Do I have control, Mike? I'm supposed to do this.
You do. Do you see it on the upper there? Do you want me to advance?
So it was about 2 years ago that we asked ourselves what, in our small organization, what we could do for Manufacturing Day and how we could leverage that national movement in our work in Florida to primarily, we saw it as a way we could recruit students into our programs and get them interested. So, of course, we went to what we knew best, and one of our strong points has been, over the years, offering and taking students on tours of manufacturing facilities across the state. We've done that for a number of years. We know it's impactful, and we sat down together and just said, oh, we could do 200 Made in Florida tours on Manufacturing Day 2 years ago in 2013. So in the summer of 2013. We had no idea how many 200 was in reality, but that was our first pencil goal, and that's what we set out to do. So, of course, in doing one tour at a time is really easy. You know, you get a school, you connect with the school district, you connect with the manufacturer, you do all the logistics, and it goes quite well, goes fine. But doing a lot of them at the same time was a challenge. So, as I said, we've done...
Marilyn, excuse me. Excuse me, Marilyn, your slides aren't advancing. I can do that for you. Right now we're on the 200 Made in Florida tour slide. I just
advanced it. I see a new slide.
Yeah, but we're not seeing it here, so fine. If you don't mind, I'll just do it from this side. What slide should I be on?
Made in Florida industry tours before Manufacturing Day.
Okay, we're there. Go ahead.
So I talked to this, I'm sorry you didn't have this slide, that we had some history with this, and so the big step was, for us, was we thought we would get a lot more impact doing a lot of activities on a lot of tours on the same day, hoping that would bring in more media attention, bring in more community efforts, more families, etc. And we're always interested in measuring the impact that it has on students, not just as a day out of class, but also, you know, is there any longer term? Is there any way we can work more with the students on this, with this one event, to enrich their experience so it has more staying power with them? So those were two big goals for us. One, to do more, to get more profile out there, get more press, more people involved, and also to dig deeper into the impact that we had on students so they would enroll in our programs across the state. Okay, next slide. So, are you moving the slide, Mike?
Yes, it says student learning and
so impact. That's funny, because now mine isn't moving here. So, okay.
That's okay. We'll just work it. Yeah.
So because we have two collaborative efforts at the end that we're going to talk about and kind of compare, and Dave Bagley is going to speak to us about the logistics and setting up the collaborative efforts we did in Florida for organizing those tours. I'm going to step back and talk about the data collection and the impact on students. So we've always had some curriculum around manufacturing, trying to get students excited and providing materials for teachers and both at the high school and secondary school, post-secondary, to get students interested in manufacturing careers and the diversity, the high wages, and the great opportunities there were for a lifelong career. But we didn't actually follow that curriculum. We just put it out there. We sent it to teachers before the tours and hoped that they would use it or look at it before or after they took students on a typical Made in Florida tour that was just someday in 2009, for example. So in the aftermath of the Common Core coming down the line, those Common Core skill sets have to be embedded in the CTE programs as well. And we found through our local district a platform that we've been able to use to kind of wrap around some of those Common Core Florida Standards skills around the tour to build like a 4-day lesson plan for teachers to use that would fulfill their obligations one of their obligations to work with the Common Core within the career and tech programs in the state. So that's called a comprehensive instructional system. I'm not going to talk too much about that, but next slide, please. This is kind of the skinny of that system, where the students actually do research and readings before they go on the tour about the companies they're going to visit, about some of the technologies involved at the company that they're going to visit. Then they go on the tour, and finally they do a writing exercise that connects all of the research they did. This would be online research and some paper research, the readings that they did, some vocabulary that they learned, the tour experience, and then they write an essay answering a critical question that requires them to compare things that they read, saw, and heard on their trip. So it's a very comprehensive kind of unit, and we're looking forward to doing a lot more with that this year across Florida with our high school and middle school students. So we think this is important. I guess I'll just finish with this. This part of Manufacturing Day is important to have a lasting impact on the students. So it's more than this day out of class. We hope to collect some feedback from the teachers this year. We'll be tracking them more than we have done so in the past. So between this and the immediate impact, the data that we've collected that Desh will talk about just from the tour surveys will provide us a little bit more meaningful information that perhaps we'll be able to correlate or say something about, have some effect on enrollment in the colleges. We're a long way from doing that, but certainly that's one of the things we'll be looking at down the road. So anyway, I guess I'll turn it back over to Mike. I think this is my last slide.
Yes, it says Made in Florida Tour Curriculum Resources.
Oh,
that's where we are right now.
This is where you would find that as a little bit of a commercial. This is where you would actually find the curriculum on the second row where it says Manufacturing Day, which you can't read too well, under the little bus. That's where you find it on our wiki page. But there's a link at the end of the slide.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm pointing to it right there, right? Yeah, they will have the links. Thank you. Well, thank you, Marilyn. I really appreciate that. I'm going to turn to our next panelist now, who's Bill Mizerock. He's the Global Director of Continuous Improvement at ConMed Corporation. He's one of your close industry partners there in Florida. Bill, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Come off of mute if you're on it. Here's the question. Okay, so you're an industry guy, right? And that's the critical part of this, I think, in many ways. What do you think first of all, motivates ConMed, and what you think would motivate other industries, to participate? How do you participate, and what motivates you? I guess that's the question, Bill.
Thank you, Mike. Motivation-wise, manufacturing today, as most of us know, that literally it's the skill set of attracting new people into manufacturing careers is becoming more and more difficult. And this is from 2-year jobs, this is from a 2-year type degree to technical, P-Tech type college programs, et cetera, all the way to 4-year degrees. It's becoming more and more difficult, getting machinists, et cetera. And so there's really this fiduciary responsibility from industries and industry partners like ours. How do we make a difference? And part of that goes back to our education process. How do we attract students into the process? Typically our approach, we've had the last 3 years, we've brought up to 2 schools and typically about 75 students. We go through this high-level introduction of what ConMed is about. In medical device companies, there's kind of some cool hands-on things we also demonstrate and show. We tour the facilities and we go through our medical education process. And then we do a working lunch. And the lunch is really meant to be questions and answers. And the old guys like myself in the process, I want to take a back seat. I'll answer questions, but I want to get our youthful people that have just graduated that can be the influencers to help influence those manufacturing disciplines, if you will, careers in manufacturing. Because people, once they get through most manufacturing operations, they see it differently. It's the vantage point. It's not the Rust Bowl manufacturing facilities anymore. These are high-tech, they're high-tech jobs. There's high-tech solutions from AutoCADs to new product development, to documentation, quality systems. It's a different breed out there. And to be competitive today, if we're not driving our productivity and staying on a national basis, our 2.3% productivity year over year. I mean, we've got to do more with less, and how do we constantly innovate? That continuous improvement stuff that we beat the drum on all the time with my corporation is extremely important to keep our competitive advantage. But attracting people is also extremely, extremely important. So we try to create interest for manufacturing jobs, and we try to have fun around it. We try to, really the day is really meant to try to, empower students to consider manufacturing as a career option. And I don't care if they're, it's just entry-level positions. I want to run a machine all the way through. They want to become a master's degree and develop new products for us. I mean, that's really why we do it. It's really this gap and how there's a skill set shortage. The baby boomers are really impacting a lot of this. And if we don't step up as manufacturing partners to make that difference, I truly believe there'll be a serious shortfall, not only 5 years, 10 years down the road. In manufacturing, we'll start losing that economic horsepower that we have in the country. It's coming back. It's exciting. But I'm telling you, if we don't continue that stimulation, the foundation from our young people, we will lose out on it. I hope that answers your question, Mike.
It does, Bill, and we appreciate your input and also your participation on that. That's you in the picture there, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
What are you doing?
that particular one, we had that was our FLATE partnership, and we had 2 students through it, and we were actually, that was our medical education and product demo area, and we were actually that was a shaver blade that we were actually showing the working dynamics of a shaver blade along with a handpiece. Medical education side of it, we actually, the students, when we bring them in through, we actually have these Alex labs set up, and they can actually simulate a shoulder or knee surgery if they really want to do that. And so it gives them a feel. So that's really what I was doing for the 2 students there, just giving them a hands-on feel for it before they actually played with the stuff themselves. So
it's interesting. I remember touring your facility, Bill, and being impressed by absolutely how high-tech it was, and all, of course, the medical aspects of it as well. So that was my privilege to be part of that.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. And I think along with that, the education portion of it, I mean, and how do we partner with our universities or 2-year programs, et cetera. I mean, that is so powerful. The manufacturing, engineering, technology programs today are so powerful to really turn some of these students. And I love to see how many females are actually coming into manufacturing sectors because, 20 years ago, you could count the number of female engineers you had. Today, we're getting a big wave of female engineers. It's just beautiful. It really is. And that's the strength of the process. It really is. And the more we participate, the stronger, hopefully, we can create those excitement of those types of jobs that we offer. So it's good stuff.
I'm glad to hear that, Bill. Friends, let's turn now to all the panelists, and I'll toss them a couple of questions. Let's see what they do with them. I think first one, I'd like to go to Pat. Right, Pat, you're the of course, involved with the National Manufacturing Day Committee. Where do people get money for these events? I mean, do they go to their industry partners? Do they go to the Department of Commerce? They send an email to Aaron? I'm joking. How do they fund these events in your perspective, Pat?
If we're talking about the manufacturers that are involved in this, they are funding whatever they do on their own. So this is an investment that our manufacturers are making in trying to create a workforce for their future. If we're talking about the schools that may be involved, I know that many of the schools, one of their biggest problems is being able to fund the buses that it would take to send their students to a manufacturing day event. And in those cases, I know that in some cities, it's the manufacturers that are involved in doing the tours who actually help the schools pay for their buses. In some cases, it might be an economic development organization that takes on that role. In other cases, I've seen it be things like a community foundation that provides a grant to cover that cost. When we're talking about things like lunch, let's say it's a day-long activity. Normally, meals are provided, again, by the manufacturer whose company is being toured. So our manufacturing community does have a big investment in Manufacturing Day, and they, I believe, consider it as an investment because without it, their ability to attract a workforce, not just today, but well into the future, is compromised.
Well, that's certainly true. I would agree with that. And thanks. That was a good comprehensive answer. Covered a lot of bases there. Let me turn to Erin at the Department of Commerce. Erin, you mentioned the manufacturing extension partnerships. Can I call them up and ask them to be part of Manufacturing Day? Will they even know what I'm talking about? Do you have a perspective there? Is that a good way to connect with local manufacturers, do you think?
Definitely. That's one of the best ways to connect with local manufacturers, because we have manufacturing extension partnership centers in all 50 states. If you were to call them and ask about Manufacturing Day, they would not only know what it is, but they'd be able to point either your company or your school to a specific toolkit and set of resources to help you organize an event, or do whatever you want to do on that day. And they're really are on the ground folks for the Commerce Department in terms of actually getting industry signed up to do tours, and they're really doing the on the ground outreach for us.
Good, excellent. I think I will make even more efforts than we've done here in Arizona to connect with them. So I appreciate your comments there. Now, Bill, I have two questions from the audience for you. One is, do you give away stuff to the people that come? If I come to your place on Manufacturing Day, will I get a T-shirt?
Yes, we do the T-shirts. We sponsor that. We buy the lunch. And in the big picture, these are small expenses. I mean, literally, we take a couple conferences over. We go through the tours. I mean, my group and a lot of the associate engineers and engineers we have within our organization are just happy to participate in this process. But the cost is relatively inexpensive. A handful of T-shirts, we sponsor that. We do a pizza lunch that, and basically it's a question and answers over the lunch period. But Pat did a very good job explaining that, because again, this is just a small investment in the process. Because again, if we can hopefully steer one or two of these young students, and I'm always impressed with the interactive questions that these students are asking. Because there's a lot of students that the volume goes way down, and it's a little bit dim, if you will, the types of questions. But I'm so happy through our education process today. They understand it. They're so primed. They're so asking decent questions about what my career looks like, what type of jobs, what is my typical work days. I mean, they get it. I mean, this life after school, I mean, they're trying to apply that stuff. So, I mean, it's fun, but it's a small investment, though. Time and energy is just that's part of it. But between Marilyn and the team in Florida, they really have structured meetings prior to it, and basically the day it just happens, and it's 3 or 4 hours and it's over. So it's a beautiful process. It is.
Sounds like it works. Bill, second question briefly. What about parents? Do you ever get any parents to come on these tours? I guess they're pretty big influencers. Well, maybe not all the time, but sometimes influencers on their kids. Do you get parents to come at all on these tours?
Yes, we do. We don't get a lot of parents, but there are parents that actually are part of the process, and some of those are chaperones. Some of those just want to come to our facility. And actually, there is a lot of spin-off. We do intern programs. A lot of the students will grab my business card, and they actually stay in contact with me, which I know things are working when they do that. Sometimes some of the schools will actually invite us over back to the schools in case they're having a deep dive engagement on one particular subject or that type of thing, and there's more parents' involvement also. So to answer your question, yes, we get a handful usually during the events, and we open it up to anything after work, during work hours, whatever. We will do whatever we need to do to keep the interest going forward. Thank you.
Good, thanks. Marilyn, I'm going to turn the final panelist question over to you. We were impressed when you said that you're trying to make Manufacturing Day more than just an opportunity to get out of school for a day. I thought that was a pretty interesting comment. So as you work with schools, getting them involved, how do you convince a school to not only get the students out for one day, but also to carry this forward a bit? What's some of your strategies?
Wow, that's a good question. Offering them a lot of materials and opportunities to work with us, with our team. That's one of the things that we We do a lot of professional development, so it can be a teaser for teachers to come to some workshops or activities that we run, particularly in the summer for them, focusing on manufacturing skill sets or careers or anything related to the advanced technologies in the industry. And I guess, you know, when you look around the audience of the students, and Bill was nice. He said they're all asking a lot of good questions, but there's still those students that end up on the tours, going on the tours, that are, you know, looking out the window and just glad they're not sitting at their desk that day. So a little bit more work from the teachers up front. As long as they have the tools, they really don't know much about manufacturing, even in the career and tech ed areas, but particularly in the science and math courses. Giving them some tools that is just really important. That's one way they can continue to bring it back in their classrooms and refer back to the activities, refer back to the tours that they've been on. And also, having them know more about manufacturing is a great way to get them better connected to the manufacturer, so they can talk a little bit better directly to the company, the people who work at the company they visited, and hopefully in the long term, you know, have their own relationship with manufacturers, so they don't need us. You know, it's part of sustainability of any project, is to have other people take over and own it. And so that's another kind of goal of ours, is to get the schools and the companies connected on their own level and be able to interact even without us.
Okay. Well, that makes sense, and thank you for that answer. Friends, there's a couple of more questions in the chat window. We'll come back to those in our next question break, in particular one about how to engage community college administrators to make sure they understand the importance of this. We'll come back to that one. Panelists, thank you. Let's go forward now into our next session. We're going to bring to the podium, we don't actually have a podium, but we'll pretend, Jamie Meyer. She's the Assistant Director at the 360 Center of Excellence at Bemidji State University. Jamie, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. In Minnesota, we promote our statewide tours with Dream It, Do It branding. The Dream It, Do It brand is an image campaign dedicated to changing the perception of manufacturing and connecting youth, parents, and educators with manufacturing career information and resources. Minnesota's statewide tours offer schools, families, and the general public a chance to see and experience how modern manufacturing is high-tech and innovative. And each year we designate 3 days for our tours every October, aligned with Minnesota's Manufacturing Week. For 2015, our statewide tour dates will be October 1st through the 3rd. However, we leave the registration for all tours the entire month of October. Planning for our tours is really a collaborative effort. We have a statewide committee that consists of manufacturing business associations, industry, and Minnesota's Department of Employment and Economic Development. Our goals focus on student tours, and in doing so, we allocate a large portion of our tour budget to support transportation for schools. Manufacturing businesses are most responsive to school tours versus public tours because they can plan for a set number and time for opening their doors. We encourage manufacturers to open their doors to the public too, as this helps with our mission of reaching the influencers to change the perception of manufacturing. Our community tours, these tours occur in specific regions throughout Minnesota where we have reached out to Chamber of Commerce presidents, business service representatives, and workforce center representatives who are coordinating tours each year in their specific regions and communities. We provide a marketing toolkit for them to promote the statewide tour in their promotional efforts in their regions and communities. Some of our best practices: we track and measure our tour outreach with a 10-question survey for both businesses and attendees. And we provide marketing materials for our networks: signage for businesses opening their doors, a manufacturing promotional toolkit for download on our specific tour website. We have a statewide tour promotional video, and we also have giveaways for the attendees. I thought I would share our survey responses that we capture from last year. Some of the big wins we captured from the survey show that 90% of hosts plan to participate next year, 94% had good perceptions of manufacturing, and 89% were more aware of manufacturing careers because of the statewide tours. And lastly, here is a snapshot of our metrics last October. We reached 1,500 students, 150 educators, 85 manufacturing businesses participated. We had 21,500 visits to our statewide tour website, and an estimated 6,600 people attended a Minnesota tour during our statewide tour. Thank you.
You know, Jamie, those are some very impressive impact numbers, and as we go forward in this presentation a little bit, we're going to come back to impact again. I think we're going to have a couple of questions for you about those numbers, so hang on. We'll get back to you a little bit later. So thank you, Jamie, for that. Talking about the efforts in Minnesota, I have to admit, we look at the Minnesota Dream It Do It website as a model as we're trying to shape our own, so I wanted to congratulate you guys on that. Joining us next to talk about a real collaborative effort, not just a Florida effort, but a collaborative effort is Desh Bailey, and she's the FLATE Outreach Manager. Desh, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, Mike. For the past 2 years, I've served as the Manufacturing Day statewide coordinator. My role involves sharing information with regional manufacturers associations, with industry contacts, school district personnel, community government officials, and workforce and economic development boards, as well as local chambers of commerce. I'm the outreach manager for FLATE, and October is a huge time for outreach for us. When we began thinking about the initial strategy to garner participation for Manufacturing Day in Florida, FLATE decided it would be best to focus on student tours for middle school and high school students. For years, that has been a winning effort for outreach for us, and partnering that with Manufacturing Day linked very well. So we decided to divide the state into regions, initially based on the location of manufacturers, regional manufacturers associations, colleges with engineering technology programs, and other areas where we had existing contacts, just to make it a little easier to reach that 200 student tour goal that we originally set. And as you can see on the map, that was the 2013 map in which we reached 24 counties. They were involved in Manufacturing Day in 2013. And 2014, we had 39 counties involved in Manufacturing Day. And as you mentioned, Mike, it definitely is a collaborative effort, and it did not take place just with FLATE alone. We had lots of help all across the region. The original goals were to, within a 2-year period, we wanted to increase the number of student tours for middle and high school students. We were hoping that manufacturers would provide lunches for the students attending the tour. Of course, kids like food, but it also provided a great time for students to interact with technicians and engineers on site and to really discover the various careers that exist in a manufacturing facility. We thought it would be really cool if students could have t-shirts so that everyone could represent manufacturing in a unified way. And then the students will be able to keep those t-shirts and have it as a tangible reminder of the great experience that they enjoyed. We decided to make posters for educators and distribute those. Last year in 2014, FLATE worked with the school district of Hillsborough County to develop the Made in Florida Tour curriculum. And of course, as always, we always survey. That's our bread and butter, making sure that we're not just saying that we're being impactful, but actually having the numbers to prove that all of our activities and events really do help to increase the workforce pipeline for manufacturers. And one of the ways that we do that is by distributing surveys to students, tour hosts, educators, and parents. Another goal we had was to get government officials involved so that they could list Manufacturing Day in Florida for October. The first Friday in October is what we originally planned, but because of the huge I don't know, it was just so great. It just exploded. It became Manufacturing Month for the state of Florida, and government officials were able to give those types of proclamations, and that in turn produced more publicity. Not only were we getting publicity for the manufacturers, we were getting publicity for career and technical education programs, and we were getting publicity because government officials joined in and really got the ball rolling. In order to make everything happen in a timely fashion, at FLATE, we thought it would be nice to suggest some specific roles and responsibilities. And the manufacturers really stepped up to the plate. They, almost all of them, agreed to provide the tours, which, as you know, takes away from some of the productivity that manufacturers are looking for. They have to donate some of their employees' time. They have to perhaps shut down some of the processes that are running. Some employees give up their lunchroom so that the students can sit in those lunchrooms and enjoy lunch. And then, of course, manufacturers always give away swag, as we call it, the nice promotional items, and students love swag. We asked the school districts to take on the role of, number one, releasing their students from school. With high-stakes testing that goes on in Florida, it is oftentimes very difficult just to get the kids out of the classroom. So we worked with school district personnel to find out which classes would most benefit from student tours, and then provide transportation for those students as well as a substitute teacher. So when we're talking to people about planning their manufacturing day events, we always try to take into account that yes, the teachers may want to participate, but sometimes it's difficult because they may not have a substitute to take their place. So you want to make some kind of arrangements for that. And in Florida, the CTE administrators were awesome with providing transportation. And in other areas, there were banks and chambers of commerce. Those professional groups provided transportation, but it worked out. And definitely the regional manufacturers associations were key for hosting quite a few of these tours. The companies that are involved in the RMAs made a special note, not just to host one or two tours. There are several companies that hosted tours throughout the month, giving lots of students opportunities to participate. The RMAs were also crucial in helping us to distribute the surveys to the companies, and then the companies would distribute the surveys to the students. The students would turn those surveys back into the manufacturer, and the manufacturer would send the surveys back to FLATE in a self-addressed stamped envelope. And at that point, it was FLATE's responsibility to analyze, do the data entry for all of that data, and then analyze the data, and then disseminate the data to all of the stakeholders within Florida, so that we would all know how we were doing and if we were really making an impact. And then along that note, we also had great vendors and sponsorship for the t-shirts that we knew we wanted. And last year, we gave out over 1,500 t-shirts to the 3,000 students that participated in Manufacturing Day student tours. As you can see, this is just a visual of what the Manufacturing Day planning strategy looked like in regards to student tours for 2014. This may change in 2015 because we are working with some other stakeholders to really put together a bigger and better formula. So we're excited about that. But I just really have to say that that regional coordinator, that one person in the center, was crucial. I pretty much communicated with those people on a weekly basis just to make sure that we had all of the parts in place for students to take the tours and for manufacturers to open their doors. And these people may not get a lot of credit for helping to make Manufacturing Day so huge in Florida, but the regional coordinators were awesome. And the regional manufacturers associations were just so key. And then getting the government officials involved as well, and the professional organizations. That's, I think, when they say Florida was #1 in the nation for Manufacturing Day, this is why, because everybody bought into the process and got on board. Here's a sample of what the survey results look like, and I see our time is going short, so I'm going to just go a little faster. But I just wanted everyone to know that at the end of Manufacturing Day, there was always follow-up. So we sent letters, we sent the survey results, we sent out infographics saying exactly how we improved from 2013 to 2014. We sent T-shirts to say thank you and we appreciate your support. You'll notice that we always had all of our sponsors on the back of the shirts as well as the companies that participated in the tours. And we sent out certificates just so that everyone would know that they were appreciated and respected. And I think that goes a long way. Sometimes just saying thank you garners support for years to come. Here's a simple timeline. I'm not going to go through all of this now. It will be available at the end of the webinar. You'll have the PowerPoint to look back on and see the timeline. If I were going to say that anything that we should be doing right now, it would be to look at the resources that are available. Manufacturingday.com has a ton of resources for planning Manufacturing Day activities. There's a great planning guide. FLATE's website as well as the wiki has really good information about student tours and student surveys and some templates for student surveys. We always put all of the Florida results on the madeinflorida.org website. And for anybody that's on the line in Florida right now, if you don't already have a contact for doing Manufacturing Day events and you're hoping to make some contacts, you could always click on the link for the SurveyMonkey, and that's how you can get involved in Florida. Thank you, Mike.
Dave, thank you very much for giving us that key information about the events in Florida and how you work through your collaborators. Now, folks, let's talk about this a little bit further. We're perfectly on time now. I'm not going to launch the survey just yet, so I'm going to go back to the resources slide. Let me think how to phrase this question. I think I'd like to start with Pat again. Pat, what do you think is the most meaningful impact number? You talked about a number of, we've seen a number of metrics presented, a number of impressions, a number of students that have gone on tours. If you have to go to the bank, what's your strongest argument for impact?
Mike, this is a big country, and we look at numbers that frankly surprise us, even those of us who are in the organizing group, when we see that within 3 years we've had an impact with over 400,000 people, and that is a number that kind of impresses people. But think about it. How many manufacturers are there in America, and how many people are there in America? We know that there are 12 million, give or take some, 12 million people who work in manufacturing. If you subtract that number from the general population, it means that to really have an impact and have everyone in America understand manufacturing, we've got about, 200 million people to go.
Yes.
So we know that the real connection here is how many people in the general population can we introduce to manufacturing. That, of course, is kind of where we have to start. Then the next most important factor is, are we having an impact on how they think about manufacturing? And I'm so impressed with all of the surveying that people are talking about here, especially when we look at what Jamie is doing in Minnesota, what Desh's group is doing in Florida. Getting feedback is really important. We, frankly, at the national level have been focused for the first few years on surveying the people doing the events, getting their input so that what we create will help more and more manufacturers do this and do it easily and successfully. But we are actually starting now in 2015 to be surveying ourselves what kinds of impressions young people have, what kinds of impressions community visitors have. So getting that ability to know how an event impacts someone is just as important as getting them to go to the event. So I have to look at it that way, and then finally, getting more and more people to go means that we have to have more and more events for them to go to.
Sure.
And so if I was to give the numbers a hierarchy, that would be it.
It's a good response. Let me turn, you mentioned Jamie. Let me turn, because I promised we would come back to her. Jamie, you mentioned in 2014 you reached over 1,500 K-12 students. How do you know that? And number two, do you have a target for 2015?
We do. I guess I don't have those goals right in front of me, but we want to increase the numbers, of course, in every area. I know that our goal is 100 manufacturing businesses in 2015. I can imagine that I believe our student reached goal is probably about 2,000.
Sure.
And we know that we know that because of our survey. From the surveys that we've sent and we received back, that is really our way to track and measure our success. We also know that because we have a specific registration website for the manufacturing businesses to register their tours.
Oh, good.
And then we, like Desh kind of commented, that all of the success happens with kind of the regional coordinators. We're very closely connected to those boots on the ground, the workforce representatives and the business service area reps that are coordinating those tours. So we have, the number of schools and the number of educators and the number of students in each classroom. So we're able to meet the goal of really tracking and measuring everything that we do so that we can measure our impact.
Good. Thanks for that response. Folks, we're close to the official time of our webinar, but I'm going to invite you to stay for just another few minutes. I've got a tough question for Erin, so I'm putting her on notice there. Before I ask her that question, let me just ask you to help us. I'm going to launch our very brief survey, which will help us improve as we do these webinars and give some feedback to ourselves. So you'll see on the screen, there it is on the screen now. So just go ahead and hit the radio buttons. Remember, moderators, presenters, please don't submit the survey. So here's the question that I promised for Erin while people are doing the survey. Okay, Erin, so as a policy person, you now want to take some impact data forward up to the Secretary, and you're going to say we ought to enhance our policy or strengthen our policy in support of Manufacturing Day. And here's why. Here's an important impact that we see is going on. What would make the most convincing argument? You may not have that data today, but am I phrasing this question right, Erin? What could you use? What could we give you to make a case for enhanced support?
I think what we could use and what gets beyond just the number of students and the number of companies that participate, which are powerful in and of themselves, are those metrics that are being developed that really get at, there wasn't just an event that was attended by many students, but we know that the students, when they left, actually changed what they thought about manufacturing. And I think the other thing we look at is how do we make sure that those types of activities are not just happening on one day, but that Manufacturing Day happens throughout the year. It's great to have one day where everybody celebrates it and there's a lot of attention and publicity, but there's an important follow-up work to be done after companies have had those students in, to continue to partner with their schools, to offer internships, to do summer camps and things like that. And so measuring those ongoing activities is really important for making the case as well.
Those are great points. That sort of was echoing with what Marilyn was saying. She wants to be more than just to get out of school day. She wants to think of this in a longer perspective. So thank you, Erin. Two last questions. This one's for Bill. So Bill says, uh-oh, I got to pay attention. Bill, I've got a colleague here in Arizona that I want to convince to be part of our tours and things. I'd like to have him call you. This is hypothetical so far. And get your impression of how it works. What's the one thing you would say? He's going to say, is it worthwhile? Is it really worthwhile doing this, Bill? What would you tell him?
I would say absolutely is worthwhile, and anybody can call me directly or email me directly also. Mike, you can share my email information with anybody that's online as we go forward. But
okay.
I think the important part of it, though, I mean, all seriousness, I mean, I think as we can convert those doubting Thomases, if you will, and it's all about skill set. If we can't constantly attract the skill set, and Aaron, I mean, there's a lot of that's very true. I mean, we can provide the education, we can provide the training, we can even provide hopefully these pathways that they'll be interested in coming in and attending. But how many people are we converting into manufacturing? And those are the jobs. That's that foundation. And that's the stuff that we have to start planting those seeds now, and hopefully that harvest is going to happen 3, 4, or 5 years down the road. And that's what's important to us. And so if we can't provide that, I mean, it's just invest in your future. If you're in manufacturing, you get it. It's not a hard sell, it's a soft sell because you understand about the skill set. We've got to be positioned as we go forward for the next 10, 15, 20 years. And as a result of that, if we don't invest a small amount of resources to try to create that passion, that excitement for our students coming into these manufacturing jobs, we're all going to fail. And all the jobs are going to go offshore, guys. And it's really about our survival basis. I mean, we can provide the best education systems in around the STEM programs, the FLATE programs. These are outstanding programs that we offer. But those students are in the process. So how do we track the new students into it, then those pathways into manufacturing? So, I mean, thank you, Mike. Hopefully that answers you.
It's a good answer, Bill. Folks, look in the chat window. You see another industry colleague. He brings up an interesting point. He says it's helped their employees learn more about their company. Boy, I hadn't really thought about that, but I guess that would happen. As you're talking about your company to others, you tend to learn more about it. It talks about a suggestion to contact a local manufacturers association for support. I like that one too. So I think that's a good thing that we can go forward. All right, friends, you've appreciated your completing the survey, so click those last buttons because I'm only going to give you a few more seconds and then we're going to close that. So here we go. Survey is closing in 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There we go. Friends, we're now at the close. We want to thank you for doing this. We're going to take one last question. The webinar will officially end it now. But we will ask those of you to stick around for this one last question. We'll give this to Marilyn Barger. Thank you for organizing this, Marilyn. You know, there was a question of how do you gain support? You know, we work at community colleges. I thought this was a difficult question in a way. What would you say, Marilyn, if someone wants to go to their dean or their VP of academic affairs, how do you convince them to let your program be strongly associated with Manufacturing Day? Well, what do you say to make that case, Marilyn?
Well, I think it should be an easy sell to administrators at community colleges because we're always looking to increase enrollment in our programs. So participation in Manufacturing Day, where they get a lot of extra bonus, a lot of extra publicity as being part of a national movement, really helps highlight everybody who participates, and they can use that both locally for the individual students who they might recruit to come and visit their college. We had a lot of college tours as well as industry tours happening in Florida to showcase programs, and some of the manufacturers would be there instead of in their shop. So I think it's a great opportunity for colleges to participate however they can. Our school districts thought it was a great way for them to invest in their CTE programs, many of them in Florida, because of the visibility, and they need students in those programs as well. A lot of times there's lower enrollment in the industrial programs, and just thought, you know, there was a great opportunity for them, and many of them were quite willing to provide that transportation money that Desh mentioned in her talk.
That's a pretty convincing argument, I think. If you make arguments like that, I think that could help carry the day. It's not a perfect world, of course, because people have their perceptions, but I appreciate that. So Marilyn and colleagues, I'd like to close today with a shout of thanks to all of you. Marilyn, thank you for leading the effort in Florida and leading this webinar, producing it for us. Aaron, appreciate your joining us as Senior Advisor from the Department of Commerce. Really appreciate the support there. Pat, it was great to hear about the National Manufacturing Day from that national perspective. And Bill, we thought it was important to know how strongly industry supports it, and you're a good example of that. Jamie from 360, great to hear about what you're doing in Minnesota and how well it's working. And Desh, we really appreciated the details of what's happening in Florida and what's going to happen for the coming October event. That officially closes our webinar for today, folks. Thank you for joining. Goodbye, everyone.